All right, I believe this is episode 41 of the podcast. It is a Sunday night. I think this is the first time that we've done this time. It's kind of a end of the week, like wrap up type of feeling. Um, how you doing, Steven?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing all right, man. Just got a bunch of work this week that I didn't finish, but everyone's out here trying their best, right?
Yeah, everyone's trying their best.
So I keep telling myself. Um, what episode? This is 41, I said, right? I think last week
Yeah,
was
41.
40, and then we had a lost episode. Uh, that was originally the 40, but we were rambling like even more than usual, so we didn't post it.
But it worked out, right? We closed out our 1 year on around even number on 40 versus like a 41.
Okay, so season two of the podcast. This is episode one.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's open with this question. I had this question written down. I think maybe from last week. I don't know if I asked it last week. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but um, I don't remember the answer, so it's new to me. Um, so this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. At HEH, we do try to do some stuff for our employees. Um, there's like activities we do for 18 to 25-year-olds. I think that's like kind of like the demographic of the people that work at HEH. Um, I guess my question for you is, what do you wish you knew about mental health in that at that age for yourself compared to what you know
Oh,
now? You're 32, right?
yeah.
Okay, so
Wow.
say
What
10
a
years
question.
ago. 10 years ago, what do you wish 22-year-old Steven knew about mental health that he currently knows now, but definitely didn't know 10 years ago?
So the crazy thing is that I feel like on average I knew way more about mental health at 22 than the average 22-year-old. So in that sense, like my answer is already going to not be very generalizable. Like I feel like that's how low the bar is on mental health education and knowledge and awareness. Um, you know, uh, I think for me, it's not an easy answer, um, but I would have appreciated a little bit more, I guess, literature or guidance on how to both accept the label, right, but also living outside the label. I mean, it's a paradox, you know. I remember for a long time I struggled with, the diagnosis, the label. Like I would literally, depending on when you asked me, I either believed it was real or not real. And I either believed it was either useful for me to like look at mental illness through like that clinical diagnostic, kind of symptom list lens. And then other days I'd be like, F it, like labels are constrictive, like, you know what I mean? Like, be beyond it. Why would, um, and like I'm somewhere in the middle, and I feel like but it's maybe there's no shortcut to it, but just something that could help accelerate that, if that makes sense at all. And that's kind of like what we talk about on this podcast, like as a whole, right? Like living in within labels, but not being like defined or attached or uh, constricted by them. If that makes sense.
Okay, so my next question is, what aside from a well-timed heavy dose of psychedelics, would you say would help reduce the time to understand what labels are and how to, I guess, like have a better, um, I guess, know how to use labels better rather than either being trapped by them or ignoring them when they do matter? Because I think your answer was like, if there was a way to understand like how to use labels better in a way. I don't think those were your exact words, but that's kind of what I gathered. Then it would have helped you with your mental health at 22.
Yeah, so I had this feeling even before I did psychedelics, right? Um, and Yeah, I think you can totally like navigate this space without going into like psychedelic stuff. Here's one thing that I've used as a mechanism to better understand uh, labels and what I should accept and not accept. Like one thing that I still have struggled with and like only now have kind of made more significant strides to it is like apologizing for something that is a result of your mental illness. So, and maybe I can ask you this question, Hack. Using like lateness can be a symptom of ADHD, for example, right? Um, how have you kind of managed when you kind of like want to apologize for being late? Um, and obviously, I think it varies between people that know you and don't know you and context and stuff. But
Um, Depends on what you mean by manage. I mean, I'm still late to stuff. Uh, I've gotten better at it. Um, but I am still late to stuff. I don't know if I've managed is the wrong word because I haven't figured it out. You know what I mean? As if there's something to figure out. It's just like a to me the reason I'm late is because I'm relatively optimistic with how long I think things will take. I'm also relatively lenient on like starting on time. And so the combination of the two, I don't start something on time because let's say I'm like, you know what, I need to go upstairs and get a snack first before I start this thing. There goes mine. There, 30 minutes just disappeared. Oh wait, you know what? I need to check my phone for this thing. Next, thing you know, another 30 minutes disappears. And then so I'm starting late, but then also the task takes longer than I think. So then I'm basically like, fighting this uphill battle that's set up for myself. So I don't know, like if what do you mean by manage? I think I only make friends with people that are okay with the fact that I'm late because they understand that I have good intentions otherwise. But I think for people that are like, yo, this dude disrespected my time, then I've probably lost some friendships that way that I didn't know about. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
or maybe some opportunity in that domain where had I showed up on time, it probably would have worked out better. Um,
yeah. I mean, you're still an enigma, a case, man, and maybe it's because like uh, you're not necessarily forced in as many situations like other people where they have to maybe be around people who take being late as disrespect, like a boss, or something. Um, but I actually think that manage is the right word. It's one that's used a lot, like in um, mental illness treatment, because you're just managing symptoms. You're just managing it, right? You're like you said, it's not solving. You're just, and it's not even meaning that you found the right management plan, because management is usually a bunch of things together, and those bunch of things don't cure it, but they manage it. They kind of like keep it at a workable state. And but I think that at least from my perspective, when it comes to things like being late or things I can't control, a lot of times what people ask from you is like some type of remorse or like for what happened, right? And that's what I mean by managed, because you understand it, right? You have so much data on like why that happens, and how many people have you actually explained it to and they're like, oh, that makes sense, Hack, that's why you're late. No, they're like, no, dude, just that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you just need to like not do it, or just do it,
yeah,
right?
for people that are always on time, they're like, dude, you're not dumb. Why don't you just leave 10 minutes earlier? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I mean, if I could, I would. Um,
Yeah.
it is
It's
interesting. No, it is interesting though. Like when you think about the late thing, because it's such it literally happens like every day, possibly. Some days I'm
mm-hmm.
on. Okay, so I do think one of the things that's happened for me at least, um, like like I definitely I definitely procrastinate like a decent amount. Definitely go like come late to stuff because I miscalculate how long it takes to do stuff. And so things I've done to try to mitigate that stuff uh have been like trying to learn like I guess like the techniques that people would use. Like for instance, I do like a weekly planning session now for myself. I plan out my days. I have a morning routine, I have an evening routine. Doesn't happen perfectly all the time, but I probably know like a lot of the best practices when it comes to um like how do you plan out your day, how do you plan out your week, how do you plan out your month, um like I guess like all the productivity like hacks and stuff like that just because like I have trouble being productive otherwise. So honestly like it's kind of a super interesting combination because I think I can live in the world of the abstract and like learn best practices and learn like techniques and learn like kind of like strategies and stuff because I just my brain naturally goes that way and I can like almost like map out like what I should be doing. And if
Yeah.
I was coaching someone, I could probably tell them exactly what they should be doing. If they can just get themselves to do this, it'd be great. But there's like this like knowledge action gap when it comes to myself, just because knowing like up here is different than knowing like, in here, right? So, so I guess to
Yeah.
answer your question about how I've managed, I mean, I've tried to do stuff, and as a result, I've learned a lot, like of intellectual
Yeah.
um, stuff.
Okay, you know what? Maybe I can flip the lens back to me, and maybe you can help me with this case, right? Um, you know that I had rowing practice last week, early in the morning, but we went out the night before to a friend's birthday party, and I was supposed to make that, and I kept saying, I was just, guys, I can't go overboard. I gotta wake up early, like, But we had a table, and it was our friend's birthday, right?
That was also
And
but that was my bad too.
no, it wasn't. It wasn't. But see, here's the thing: there's personal responsibility, which, like, ADHD in particular, that's why it's so terrible. Because for everyone else, it looks like you're just giving them the middle finger, right? But like ADHD is poor impulse control, right? Like low dopamine. Like sometimes shit just gets out of hand. And yeah, that night I was having fun. And I was like, throwing out a drink. And in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm sure I'm gonna be able to rally. Like like this is not a problem at all. Like let's just enjoy the fuck out of right now, right? And I didn't make practice, dude. I actually woke up late, and like the dude was like, "Yo, dude, where you at?" And I was like, "Oh fuck," and I just like owned up. But it's funny because in the past, when I was younger, in those moments, like I would be, and this is where I think you and I are two sides of a coin, the same coin, which is really interesting because I don't think you necessarily go through this like intense guilt and remorse thing that like I go through when something like that happens. I'm like, oh my god, like I feel like I left these people hanging, and they really needed me there, and we only have two practices, and so I missed one of two practices, like, and but because I'm older now, I also said, all right, dude, that this is a thing that you do, like you're gonna just be better next time, like fuck it, you missed it, whatever, right? But and this is okay because it's like stranger, like it's friends, it's acquaintances, and yeah, you can get by. But like missing your girlfriend's like birthday or some shit, right? Like what are you gonna do with that one, right? Like it's like I'm sorry, it's just the way I am. What the fuck you mean it's just the way you are? Own up to it and be better. Like don't accept it. Don't. Oh, it's ADHD. Oh, you go ahead, blame it again on those four letters. Like I don't believe it. You get what I'm kind of get at? Like what am I supposed to say? Like I'm sorry. I'll try to be better, but it's the way I am. But I'll try to be better.
Well, okay, so there are certain things that if I'm late to, I feel a whole lot more guilty about.
Yeah.
Um, like stuff that people need you to be there for, that you said you'd be there for. I think even with or without ADHD, like obviously
Yeah.
like there's like certain shit that you don't miss, and like and obviously it's a gradient. Like if I show up 3 minutes late to something versus I show up 30 minutes late to something, and if it's like 3 minutes and it's like one person was going to be there already, and and I just like kind of pop in, and it's not like uh versus like I'm 30 minutes late and there's like 10 people waiting for me to get there and they can't start without me. It's like a completely different like gradient. I think for instance, like even like with let's say with sports, right? I play a lot of intramural sports. A lot of times what we try to do is we have just the right number of players so that everyone can get like maximum playing time. So if I come late, it like really like hurts the team. Or like if I'm playing quarterback and I'm the only one on the team that can do it, they're like, hey, yo, we've elected you to be the guy that kind of like calls all the plays for us, and we trust you to quarterback. And let's say I show up late to that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like really bad. So it's weird. It's like I can do it if there's a gun pointed to my head for sure. But like you can't just walk around life like feeling like there's a gun pointed to your head. You know what I mean? That's also not that's called like just always being in fighters, something like that probably causes like unnecessary anxiety. I don't know, man. I don't know I do remember that night at Karen's. I want to take some blame for that at Karen's birthday because I remember I looked at you and I was like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna drink that much because I'm driving. And you were like, oh yeah, if me and you, I got to get up at 9, so if me and you go shot for shot, then we're good. Somewhere between when I said that and like I don't know, I guess like the energy of the night. Um, I decided I looked over to Min or Kelsey and I was like, hey, can one of y'all drive my car? And Kelsey was like, yeah, I got it. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm not driving, but maybe I didn't mention that to you. And then so you were going shot for shot with me, but it slipped my mind to be like, yo, Steven, I'm no longer driving. So that's probably my
No, I
bad.
appreciate that, man. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, I was up to my own shenanigans, so no worries. But I appreciate that. Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, I totally get it. But like, walk me through though, like when people press on you, and maybe like you said, those types of people just either fall away from your life or whatever. You just don't have a strong relationship. Like, like people. Do ever people like they want you to feel like bad? Like,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
what do you do with that?
some people will definitely like.
Yeah.
Okay, there's people that definitely make it a point to be on time. You know what I mean? And they
Mm-hmm.
would inconvenience themselves to get to places like, early so they don't inconvenience someone else. Right. And so that effort, like it goes unnoticed because it's almost like you take it for granted because this person is here on time, but you're like, yeah, obviously that's expected. If I don't inconvenience myself to get to show up on time, then it means that like, I mean, it's inconvenient
Yeah.
for someone else now because I didn't do that. And I get that. I think a lot of times the people in my life that's kind of like stay friends with me, they kind of see how I am, not in a bad way, because there is a benefit for that too. Now the other end of it is a lot of times, I'll be somewhere and I was supposed to, like I should have left already, uh, but the task isn't done yet. And I'll be very liberal and I'll be like, you know what, we just gotta get this shit done. So I'm gonna stick around and just like try to finish. And they're like, yeah, but you're gonna be late to this other shit. I'm like, yeah, but we have to finish this shit. And then so like if you've been around me long enough, then you've received some of the negative, but you've also received some of the positive, where it's like, I'm helping you carry this thing to the finish line, even though it's beyond the point of my obligation as far as time goes. And so I think uh, over time, the people that have been around long enough, they're like, yeah, I guess Hack comes late, but maybe they give me like a little bit more benefit of the doubt just because they understand that the intention isn't like it's not like I'm sitting at home like, yeah, I'm totally gonna show up late because uh, I want to insult this person. It's more so
Yeah.
because it's like a lack of an ability to I guess either plan ahead or even plan ahead and estimate the correct amount of like time that it takes to get somewhere. Um, so um, and
Yeah.
I've probably lost. I don't know for sure, but I feel like I've probably lost some opportunity, from showing up late. Which is probably fine because I've probably gained some opportunity from staying late at other things too. So uh, I don't know, but
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
I definitely don't feel as guilty as I should. I think I do for like the big things. Like, I mean, I kind of gave the little the way I would grade how guilty I would feel, of course, but But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So actually, I want to circle back to something that you hold that thought because I want to go back to that. But before that, I think you touched on something that's uh, super important. I think it's a diagnosis of our modern day and age where, excuse me, like we a lot of relationships only happen because people are forced to be with each other. You know what I mean? And in the modern age, there's just so much choice. Like in the modern age, you don't have to be, and I'm speaking from privilege, okay? I'm 100% speaking from privilege. Like you don't necessarily have to be at this job or with this person or this friend group or this particular team for that hobby. You know what I mean? Like dating is just like I mean, like literally there's infinite choice. And so no one gets stuck having to, I don't know, like make concessions for somebody and experience maybe like you said the pro, right? Like oh like because people make snap decisions like before even trying to see what potential benefits this type of person may bring. Like as soon as they get one thing, they're like, ah, no, I'm done, right? And
Hmm.
so then like relationships become so much more shallow, and depth comes from when you make concessions for people because like there's so much more to that relationship, so much more to that human and what have you. But um, no, actually, I'll just pause there and let you react to it and before going on.
You're making the claim that relationships are shallow because there's almost like a paradox of choice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like too much choice. I mean, it's a very conservative thing to say, but like this actually came up when I was considering and trying to understand like polyamory and why and how viable that it even works. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like like that's wild, right? And um, in the counter position to that is look, it's great that you can go and get different needs uh, fulfilled by different people, but there's also something about being stuck with a person and knowing they're stuck with you and knowing you're not going to be able to get it anywhere. Like there's nothing else. There's just like making this work and kind of trying to develop it into the next like stage, right? Because without that constraint and pressure, the thing doesn't evolve, right? It doesn't need to. There's nothing making like I think like a lot of systems they unfold because there's constraint. And in a lot of design, right? Some of the best design in the world and inventions are because the constraints were so freaking narrow and tight, and someone solved for it that they thought it was like unsolvable. And what comes out of it is like arguably like some of the best stuff that humans can come up with, right? Um, and so I don't know. Yeah, I was thinking about that too, about relationships.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like if you like some things won't get taken to the next level because they don't have to. There's it's like the paradox of um like optionality in a way. Like rather than burning all your boats, you have unlimited like choices. So you don't have to close any doors. And that makes it worse because you're not going like I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but yeah, I genuinely agree with that. Systems do need constraints, and I guess relationship is kind of like a system that between two people that would evolve more over time if it was required to. I guess not in all cases. Maybe they just people just get a divorce or something, um, but I guess that's removing the constraint. Hey, you're stuck with this person. Maybe like arranged marriages. That's kind of like, all right, look, this has to work. Like it's
Yeah,
required that this
exactly.
works. Isn't that interesting? Like imagine
Mm-hmm.
if you grew up in a society where it's like you're expected to be in this arranged marriage, because your family promises other family that, so and so. And then because like there's no backing out, like this contract is so strong, it's like, yeah, for your family, you gotta like, make this work. Uh it becomes like a different thing than in I guess in our society where for a lot of people, I'm sure arranged marriages wouldn't make sense. It would just kind of be like, aren't you supposed to like, just pick who you love and end up with that person and then kind of like figure it out from there. Um, but I guess that's another possible situation where choice is, better or worse, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, man. No, totally. Um, it kind of reminds me of my own development too, where I would say like I was pretty like idealistic and bright-eyed in terms of like relationships where um, I didn't think like for example that college degrees mattered, and I don't want to go strong and emphasize that like things like that matter, but it's almost like I took everything that was like subject or superficial and materialistic, and I just rejected it. Right? I was like, but then over time, I started to realize like, man, look, if someone went to a college like UVA, comparable, like they're just gonna be so much like we're just gonna be so much more compatible out the gate. Like it's a filter, right? Like, college is really one of the. I'm not saying it's a fair one, and I remember coming to that realization and not really, and just like kind of processing it for a little bit. Like, oh, what does that mean? Um, and so that I only brought it up because you brought up the arranged marriages where like your parents are kind of like doing that on all these different measures too. It's like matching, like, but
The filtering mechanism definitely matters for sure. I mean, obviously, not in all cases are the filters perfect, where it's like, okay, well, this because this person went to this college, they're better for me. But I think in a general, in a generalized like population, you could probably say, okay, well, that filtering mechanism, if that's what you're going for in terms of like similarities,
yeah,
um, I mean, I would say it probably matters. But there's always like those edge cases where it's like, oh, this person didn't go to college, but they're perfect for me, and then obviously like they write stories about those ones, and then you hear those stories and you're like, oh, dope.
true, true, true. Oh, okay. So I wanted to go back to this, like, since going back to mental illness, because that's what we talked about. Where, like, here's a thought, maybe a hypothesis. Like, because there's less of these structures where, like, for better for worse, humans are just stuck together. Um, that's why you have this higher incidence of mental illness, right? Like, people are like everyone is like meant to strike out on their own and choose where they attach themselves, like their membership, right? Like I want to be in that club. Um, but in the past, I think maybe it was more like just a given. You were just a part of this religion, a part of this tribe, part of this like whatever, part of this family. Family might be huge. You might be part of this wing of that family, and you were just all your membership was never ever in question. You just always be that way. Versus now, it's like good luck.
Like you have to define your own meaning as opposed to like having meaning or identity perhaps bestowed upon you.
Your membership, like your membership, you don't have a secure membership to all of these groups that you would have otherwise had, right? Like if you think about it, right? Like heck, all the different social groups that you have, like you have like a membership card to all of them, right? Which one of those are like degree of solid, right? And like everlasting versus ones that are less so temporary. And then if you think about across the spectrum of people, like how many people actually have like secure membership to the groups that they're in, and so that they don't feel this anxiety of like, dude, I could lose this membership at any point.
That's crazy you think about it like that. Because like the membership of the group isn't just being accepted by another group, but I think the fact that you're accepted by a group and there's people within that group that probably all view you in a similar like um I guess like a similar view because it's like a like my friend group of let's say there's a group of 10 friends that I have and we're all friends together. They probably all view hack in a similar manner. Like the identity of hack within that group, it's viewed in a similar manner because obviously everyone's pinging off of like my actions, but then they're talking about me and all that stuff. It kind of like solidifies into like this idea of hack, and then when I'm a part of that group, I'm pinging back and forth to reinforce that identity with the members within that group. But then if you get cut off from that group, then all of a sudden you don't have you know any way to ping, or you have one less way to ping. And if it's like if it's like a key group in your life that you kind of like, I guess, identify with, or subconsciously use to kind of like reinforce your own identity, then all of a sudden you're like without an identity or less of one. I don't know how that works. I just made that up. I don't even know if it makes any sense.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say or
No.
no?
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say. I get what you're trying to say.
I think a lot of times that's why breakups are so tough too, because it's like a group of two. I mean, oftentimes it's more than a group of two because it's like, you and, the friends of your significant other and all that stuff too. But let's say it's like a very strong group of two and you guys are pinging each other. Like, hey, Steven, you're this, you're this, you're this, like, this person that you're close to, obviously, intimately too, believes in you and, believes all these things about you. Same with, them to you. But then when you decide, okay, like we're breaking off this construct, boyfriend, girlfriend, like no more, then like assuming that you stop hanging out with them, there's no more pinging, there's no more like reinforcing, like them reinforcing your identity that has been reinforced over the years that you're together, and similarly vice versa for them. There's no more reinforcement of that identity, so then they have to find another way to reinforce that identity, or I don't want to say, well, or they lose it. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but you get what I'm trying to say. It'll be like
Mm-hmm.
if like someone believes that, hey, Steven, like by me being with this girl, it's implicit that I believe this girl is a good person. It's probably implicit that I believe in them and I just think that they deserve the best and all that stuff too. And obviously, like if I'm with them for long enough and we're kind of going back and forth like through how I treat them, then they'll start to think, hey, I actually deserve the best. I actually am a good person. But then when I leave and they don't have like, that those experiences to help them like reinforce that idea, uh, and it could leave a hole.
Yeah. Man, yeah. I mean, relationships, when you define it as a group of two, like my head kind of just spun for a second.
If you think about
Because,
what a relationship is, how they talk about culture as like, how like a group of people interact and act together. And then, obviously all places of work, they're always like, oh yeah, our culture is super important because our core values and so and so and so. I mean, culture can be between two people too. That's what a relationship is. Like, but it's like a very specific culture between two people. Like how I act to you, we have a certain culture between us. We have a certain, like a certain dichotomy. There's certain, beliefs and expectations between us, even if it's not clearly defined. Um, Over the years, it's been developed. I'm sure if we really wanted to, and we wanted to sit down and go through one of those like, like those culture workshops that they always do at work to identify your core values and all that stuff, we probably could, and we could probably agree on a bunch of stuff. But whether or not um, we do that between two people or not, it's there. Just because you don't put words on it doesn't mean it's not there.
yeah. Can can I totally pivot and go to a question that you asked me in chat maybe yesterday or 2 days ago?
Sure, I forgot what I asked you. So
I sent you a reel of Tupac talking
oh
about
yeah,
thinking before he acted or spoke, and one of the things he said is just like, yeah, like things he before he before he spoke, that you'd say things that he wished he could take back. And you asked, what does it mean to take something back? And I thought that was a thought provoking question.
Um, oh yeah, I did ask that. Do you have an answer?
I mean, I have an answer ish, but and I think it's kind of related to what we're talking about. Where I mean, you've disrupted both of our identities, right? Like I think when you say something you want to take back, like your model of me has now changed, um, and like I don't want it to be that way. Like I wish it was like didn't go that direction. So you're like it's like a piece that fell out. You're like, um,
It's like the cat's out of the bag.
yeah, yeah,
When you say take it back, yeah, because like when he said that, I mean, I think I guess we could probably link it to the like in the show notes or whatever, or the YouTube description to that reel. But I think the interviewer asked Tupac something along the lines of, you know, as you've grown up and got more mature, what is that? What does getting more mature mean to you? And I think the answer was what you stated. You know, I wish I thought more before I could before I spoke. Um, that way I wouldn't have to, you know, take stuff back. And and I think I forget what he said after that, but I think he implied that, you know, once you can't take it back after you say it really. You know what I mean? It's like you can't unspill like a drink on the floor. It's already like everywhere. Once I say something, if I say something and then that goes into the model by which somebody like it's like words matter. Like they matter like a decent amount more than actually okay, so this is a lesson I've had to learn myself. And it's still not an experiential thing for me. Because I think for some reason I don't get offended very easily. Like I choose not to. And I've usually more times than not I've had that choice compared to relative to others around me. In spots where like an average person might like just get offended, I'll probably just be like, all right, I'm okay, whatever. I don't care. You know, move on with my life. And then so for me, that experience of being able to choose whether or not something matters or not, like, you know, if somebody says like something insulting to me, experientially, I don't think words matter that much for myself. But then over the years, I've realized, and you know, for someone in my position, I guess like, you know, I'm old enough, where like luckily in my friend groups, you know, some people look up to me or like, you know, my family or I guess like at work and stuff like that. So what I say, like a lot of people are pinging off of what I'm saying, you know, just because of the positions that I'm in, you know, older brother or, you know, someone's boss or like, you know, somebody that's been friends with people and kept a, I guess like a slightly relatively positive reputation over the years. So people, I guess like put weight behind my words. And so I've had to learn and I'm still learning that I should probably uh because I don't experientially know that words matter, I need to like find a way to remember that. So I don't just like go around just saying shit and then people are just like, what the fuck the heck just say? You know what I mean? Because like what if I say something that like to me doesn't mean that much, but then to someone else it means like everything. Um because I can't unsay it. I think once you say it, it's really I mean you can go and try to clarify, but sometimes like it's already too late. You might be able to fix some shit, but like, I mean, you know, that's probably not the best method, right? Like, what does it mean? Like, if I said something like, you know, insulting to someone, and I went up to him and was like, yo, I take it back. Sorry, bro. Didn't
yeah,
mean it that way. You know what I mean? It like they can't unhear it in that moment, right? And maybe you can like help mitigate some of that damage, but like you don't know how much of the damage you can mitigate, if any at all.
yeah.
It's already updated within their system. Hack already thinks this about me, and if you know, if I'm somebody that they're pinging off of my opinion to like kind of like tie that into how they view themselves, their self-identity,
Hmm.
then that's like a really powerful thing.
It is. It is, and I think it's it's a very noble, worthwhile like thing to take on. You know, I think for anyone, right? But I do think that unless, and this is where like meditation comes in and self care. If I feel like unless you are actively doing like that, those things, um, there's almost no chance that you're going to be able to pull it off because it requires such a degree of presence. Because I think a lot of people like superficially do what you're saying, right? Like they think maybe they think too much about the way that their words are going to be perceived and the impact and da 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 and like the second order, third order and stuff. And a lot of social anxiety comes from that, right? That's why public speaking is so hard. Like I mean, people are just like jammed up. I think from that, but I think it's because they're kind of doing it blindly. But if you can like wake up every day having your seven 7.5 hours of sleep, like doing your morning pages, getting your exercise, right? And you go out into the world fully present with every human that you meet, active listening, like fully engaged, then I think that when you ask yourself, how do I formulate the right words for this situation, you won't fall into the ego trap. Like, I think that your words will be very true. Um, but I do think that absent that, if you are not taking care of yourself, you are yourself not pure in a way, not, not to use a loaded word, like overthinking it just causes more of a mess. like, uh,
Yeah,
just a
words
thought.
are words are words are interesting if you think about it. Words are like a spell. You can like get people to do shit just by like this like ejecting like these decibels into the air. Like I could if I picked the right words right now and I said something to you even through Zoom, I could probably get you to feel a certain way. I might even be able to get you to do something if I was like convincing enough, like or whatever. And so like words are like almost like a spell. So if you think about it as if it was like a like we're like putting a spell on someone, you probably and you know obviously some people like are more powerful. Like the
Mm-hmm.
president of the United States, you know he's a super powerful wizard that his words will literally you know, get a lot of people to do something or feel a certain way or you know, like he can get a lot of people to like, you know, go bomb a country
Yeah.
using just like decibels, right? And then so if you think about words as a spell, and let's say a spell is something that you can use to get people to do something or feel a certain way or you know control something externally from you using like noise, I guess, then maybe you'd be a little more careful, especially the more I guess higher on the food chain that you get with how powerful your spells can be.
Yeah. It's funny because there's like on that spectrum people who are just like they're trying to cast a spell and get but they just suck at it so they don't get what they want, and then there's just people who actually just go around like chaos, like pure balls of chaos, like just fireworks, like spewing spells, you know what I mean, like without, and it's yeah, the words and spell thing is a very strong, I think, symbol or metaphor or whatever, analogy, what have you, figure of speech.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can take anything back. You can cast another spell on top of it though. So you can't fix it by taking it back, but you can maybe fix it by casting like a you know what I'm trying to say? Like you can't like you can I mean you can't take something back unless you can make someone unhear it, but you can talk more.
But so are we talking about apologies now?
Yeah, yeah,
Like let's
like
say,
I will try
yeah,
to cast the spell of apologizing
apology,
to get you to feel
apology spell.
to get you. I know you already felt this way because I said this thing, but I want you to feel this way now with my apology spell, and
And
maybe
then what
that'll
if the
I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe sometimes like you know depending on uh the person, they might be resistant to the apology spell that you cast. You might not be able to undo it. But even if you apologize and you kind of like, uh, get them to accept your apology and, feel a certain way, then it still doesn't undo what you said. It just like does something that makes it better. There's still a -1 +1 situation, not a that shit like literally like, didn't happen.
Yeah. Okay, so if you play it out, then the receiving party then plays a forgiveness spell.
And the funny thing about forgiveness spells is not only does it work on the other person, but it kind of works on yourself too.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. It's like the that Buddha story of like anger, hate is like poison that you drink, but you hope the other person dies, right?
Yeah.
So I think forgiveness helps you get rid of that
It's the opposite.
resentment.
It's the opposite of that, right?
Yeah. So like a forgiveness spell really, it's funny because it's really about you, and I think a lot of religious practices have this underpinning them, which is you forgive because you remember and you realize that we are the same, right? And then when I forgive you, I am also like forgiving and clearing myself out. And now yeah.
How do you forgive if you can't forgive? Because you know how like, Catholicism and a lot of religions, like, yeah, you have to like forgive because of what you just said. It's like obviously God forgives you, so you should be forgiving, people or whatever. And but like what if you that's an external, like, I know I should be, and it's probably better if I do. Uh, but let's say somebody's not there yet. Like they don't feel it. Like I could be like, yeah, I forgive you, Steven. But let's say in my heart, I'm just like, man, fucking dick. Can't believe you said that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's how do you? Is there anything you can do to close that gap, or is that more like you should be on top of your self care and all that stuff, so that that gap isn't so big to make it easier to close, or self care? I don't even know if I'm using that correctly. On top of,
You mean the person that's trying to practice forgiveness, like being better at yeah.
yeah, like I mean, like it's easy to forgive when you actually feel genuinely like, hey, I
Yeah.
actually like understand that this person's just another human being that made a mistake, and that mistake definitely definitely affected me. Uh, but what can they do about it? It was a mistake, and they genuinely feel sorry, so I forgive them. But let's say you were just like, no, fuck that, and you genuinely felt that. Like, is
Yeah.
there a way to release that, or is that just something that you just gotta like, I don't know. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
so
Like,
here's my answer to it, and it aligns with all the religions and stuff. Is that what is it? That phrase like I mean you either learn that lesson or like you suffer so much. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to learn the lesson over and over until you actually learn it, right? Like that has to go. You have to take that test over and over. And I think the religious answer to that is that if you continue to hold that resentment inside of you, like your life is gonna become shitty. Like it just like guaranteed will become shitty, and then something will happen that will snap and force you to have that awakening moment where you're like, "Fuck, I've like been hoarding all this and that's what bad karma is, by the way. Karma, people always mistake karma as like this like system that decides and judges and like if you did bad things then you get bad things and if you do good things you get things. It's not like that at all. It's just literally what happens when bad human energy, like it's just the flow of bad human energy, right? Like a person who walks around with that resentment, something like they go around causing more bad karma everywhere they go, right? It's just the way they are. And then at some point, they themselves might like catalyze and some kind of acute event will happen that either resolves their karma, right? And they break free of suffering or make some learning, and that might happen over and over, or not, right? And it's gonna take a couple lessons, and then if you've gone through that a couple times, and you realize like, holy crap, like me not being able to forgive people was just me being stuck in like my own ego and needing to like feel above, like victorious and above and high, and it's actually the root of all these problems in my life now. Like shit, I have to like I have to rethink everything now. Like, oh, what is this compassion thing? It's not, and it takes a couple times. I think for people who understand what love actually means, like it's actually really the path towards love, right? Like if you go through this enough, you will understand what love actually is, and if you can hold that and move through life with that, then you stop creating shit and you can forgive people truly. So, anyway, Steven's answer.
That's a good answer. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say what to do if like you're just holding on to something, but it's like obviously you don't want to be holding on to it because it's like holding on to like like hot coals or whatever. But like
Yeah,
it's like what if you're like yo just fuck that guy, can't can't forgive him. You know what I mean? Some people are like that.
yeah, and that's why I think gurus are so good, especially the ones that are really good at poking fun and like just make like you know what I mean, like making fun of someone who's like all worked up is the best way I feel to get them to drop that coal. It's like, man, you still bent up out of that. And don't get me wrong, like there are bad shit. There's like people will wrong each other in foul, awful, malevolent ways. Like humans are pretty dark, and like I'm not trying to make light of like just glossing over and forgiving someone who like really fucked with you. But if you know the answer, you just gotta work through it and let it like scars still need to heal, however long it takes, But it will heal. Just gotta wait through it.
Yeah, it's definitely probably a time component for a lot of things too.
Yeah.
Like some of these things take as long as they're gonna take.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. Today's pod has been interesting. Started with mental health. What did we talk about? Talked about me being late for a long time. Uh, then we started talking about I guess being late, relative to ADHD. Um, then we started talking about relationships and how they're constructs between two people. Then we started talking about Tupac, and
Yeah.
now we're talking
Then we
about
talk about religion,
forgiveness.
religion and karma. Yeah. I actually was pretty psyched for this time slot. I thought I was gonna be super energetic and ready, but I'm actually like pretty spent with all the things that have been going on.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure. I
figured.
mean, you got a lot of work stuff too.
Yeah, I think this time slash for me, I'm usually probably gonna be on the lower energy spectrum because I usually procrastinate all my work. So I have all this work I have to do. So I've been kind of trying to cut into it today, and I'll probably have to do some shit after this too. So
Yeah.
like the Sunday, because all my stuff's due tomorrow morning. We have the weekly cadence, so
Yeah.
obviously for someone like me, Sundays are kind of like, it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so different. You think we should close here? I think just around an hour mark, and
We can unless there's other shit to talk about. Um, what would the title for this podcast be? Let's close when we get one of those.
ooh, yeah,
So
okay.
we keep talking until we find a title, maybe.
Maybe our pod should just be called "What's the Title?" And then like we're just trying to find titles for our rambling.
What's the title? Maybe that could be the new title
Yeah.
to the
It's like
podcast.
season one. So what? Season two. What's the title? Um, mental health.
I don't know. We should probably just keep
Spells.
talking and maybe it'll come out.
Yeah.
Hey, do you use a timer when you work?
It never works for me, man. It just doesn't. Like maybe in the future, I'm not throwing it away completely because like I have 5 calendars I use now, and at one point I thought that calendars were bullshit. And I was like, whatever, I'll just figure it out without calendars. But now, like, I need the calendars, so the timer will probably come into play in the future. But right now, I look at it like, this shit doesn't work at all. Like I don't care about it.
Yeah. I
Do
like
you?
timer. I like so I have this little cube timer next to me, and it's like a
Yeah,
five,
yeah.
10, like 15-minute thing. I like having the timers because a lot of times when I'm like distracted, I'll just put it on for 5 minutes, and I'll just be like, all right, I'm just gonna focus for 5 minutes, and it kind of helps me do that. It makes it a lot easier. Sometimes I look around, and I like left the cube. It's like on the floor somewhere, and I can't find it. And I'm like, damn, I can't do my work then. So
You know what does help me though? You made me think of it. Is my watch beeps on the hour, and that helps me a lot with time blindness. Like I'm like, oh shoot, it's an hour. Like I'm at the top of the hour, and then recently I've just been setting alarms. Sometimes I'll just set alarms like every 15 minutes or whatever, and I'm like, oh crap, 15 minutes has passed. Like, oh wow, that's interesting. That's what 15 minutes feels like when I'm like, you know, and that's helped break up. I don't have to do anything with it. I just have to attend to like I have to attend to the fact that like, oh, 15 minutes.
yeah, it's like y'all just used another 15-minute block.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it. Yeah. Okay, I have a question. I don't know if I've
Okay.
asked this question in the previous pod. You know how like nowadays, or do you get anxiety?
I do. I do, but it's gotten way better. It's probably the best it's ever been. But yeah, I do.
What's been your path there with anxiety? Like what is it? Like, when do you get it? Like what age was it like the worst or it started happening? I'm just curious because I don't get a lot of anxiety generally, but I know nowadays um it seems like everybody has like a general anxiety. Even people that don't look like they have anxiety. Like people are like, yeah, I have social
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and I'm like, you're like the most social person in this room of 20 people, bro.
Yeah.
And to me, that's interesting because I'm like, doesn't look like you have social. It doesn't pass the eye test. And I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
it's a situation where people are using the word wrong or because I don't want to like, um, I don't want to like, I don't know what the right word is, but I don't want to like disregard like, somebody's like anxiety if it's like a thing. But at the same time, are we all talking about the same thing when we say anxiety? Some people might say, hey, I'm depressed, and it's different than like actual depression. If they mean like, oh, I'm just depressed because, I don't know, I'm sad because my girlfriend left or something.
Yeah. I think it's well documented. Some of the best public speakers have come out with their anxiety. They would like have like panic attacks beforehand. Have to pop a Xanny. A lot of like really high powered organized people have anxiety. I've had anxiety as long as I can remember. Honestly, I can't remember a time when I didn't have anxiety. Like as early as my earliest memory as a kid, I've always had anxiety.
What's anxiety like? Is it a physical sensation?
It can be. It can be. It's fear. You're just afraid, right? But anxiety, I think, is marked by indulging in a ton of hypotheticals, right? Like it's taking something, right, and creating a bajillion stories out of it. And imagine you're like you have to bear the weight of all the consequences of all those stories at one time. It's like really heavy. You know, your friend doesn't respond to you as enthusiastically as you thought he was, right? And you think that he's mad at you or she's mad at you, but really they were just like having a bad day or they're just tired. Um, and so anxiety can cause like so many misunderstandings. It can come spawn from like any everyday type of thing, um, and it's like I think paralyzing is a really good way to describe it too. Another way I've heard described that I thought was really good was this. It's like imagine, um, like being in a zombie apocalypse and there's all those slow walking zombies coming at you and you have a pistol and you don't shoot at any of them. You literally just go. You just like you're just like freaking out. You know what I mean? Like anxiety is like that, but they're like inching towards you and you're just like don't even know where to shoot. Um, and usually that's the cure to anxiety. Just shoot one, like pull the trigger. And that helps break you out of that paralysis.
I wonder why I don't get as much anxiety as other people.
Good genetics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely lucky in some manner. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know how because it feels like everyone gets anxiety. Like, it feels like, I mean, I know a lot of people that get anxiety.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
I,
there's an evolutionary advantage to having anxiety for sure, right? Like,
mhm.
um, it can go haywire, but like yeah, it's good to be nervous so you don't get eaten by like a lion. Sometimes I think about that, like stoner thought, where I used to have really bad vision, and I was like, damn, I would have gotten offed real quick. Like I'm like I can only see up to here. Like Jesus, like that's not helpful at all. So,
How do you think, what are some best practices around having anxiety?
uh, meditation, I think, is one. Like the first thing, and I gotta go back to fight training because it's all related to your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, right? Like, um, when you're feeling that physiological like sensation caused by some whatever stimulus caused it, either be you know whatever. Honestly, just recognize that it's happening and recognizing that there's like physical anchors to what you're doing. Like a lot of times people don't realize that their heartbeat is like racing, right? Um, they just don't even know that. It's, hey, did you realize your heartbeat's like going up? That helps. That helps you snap. It helps you snap out of it to recognize that. And then obviously through meditation, you continue that practice of observation, and you uh, start to understand through your own direct experience that everything is temporary, right? Like we all know that logically, but until you sit there and just watch these sensations come and go, come and go, come and go, and you now like accept that as truth, um, then you can start to better manage your anxiety. Um, but again, you have to like one like do it and feel it, and then truly, yeah, accept it. Um, I mean, breathing. I guess it all goes back to understanding the body, right? Like box breathing, all that kind of stuff. Um, there was that Huberman thing where I don't know. Huberman's actually kind of gone off the rails a little bit, but he said like the fastest way is do that double inhale through the nose and then exhale, like the quick, like that, and then exhale. So there's like probably little tricks like that you can do as well. Slap yourself. I don't know.
I do think the meditation thing, that's something that you said, and something that I actually know experientially. And I've definitely like um, written about it like in my personal writings in the past. Uh, but it's actually probably something I forgot. Uh, the whole thing about, when an emotion happens, it's uh, it's essentially a physical sensation. There's something physical happening in your body. And I don't know if you said this, but to me, I think that it's a um, it's a label that you put on a physical sensation. That's kind of what an emotion is. I know it's a very rough definition that might not even be true, but let's just say it is. Like you have a set of physical emotion or like physical sensations, and you put a label on it. And then when you put the label on it, because you're familiar with that set of physical sensations and the label, let's say it's anger, then you're like, I'm angry now. It goes back into, feeding that physical sensation. That physical sensation, goes back into your mind to reestablish that label. I'm angry now. And it's just like this like loop. It's just like looping. And there's a way to break that loop. But you can only do it through um through awareness. There's like when you meditate more, there's like a split second where between the physical sensation, right before your mind puts a label on it, I'm angry now, there's like this little space, and the space gets bigger as you meditate more and you get better at it, because you're always like you're always kind of like aware or more aware than you would be. So if like let's say you get angry, okay, let's say you have the physical sensation, something happens, you have the physical sensations of anger. I'm using anger because I think early when I started meditating, that's how I experienced. That was the emotion that I was um, experientially like uh, using to learn like this thing that you're talking about like if the physical sensation can go away much faster if there's no label on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if let's say I don't know someone cuts me off immediately, even before my mind even like puts a label on it, my heart's already beating faster because it's like yo I almost fucking like like maybe I react and the car jerks and then my heart's beating faster and my palms are getting sweaty. Now though that combination of sensations possibly is like what my body interprets as anger, but uh if I meditate a lot and I have awareness in that space before my mind puts a label of anger, I can stop it right there and then just kind of feel out my heart beating fast for like 30 seconds until it drops back down to normal, and I just continue driving without any type of reaction. um I don't know if that makes any sense, but when you were explaining about anxiety, and how if you're aware of the physical sensations, you can actually kind of like interrupt that pattern. It's crazy that I forgot that because to me, like like that was a huge lesson early on when I first started meditating, and I think that definitely was helpful. I remember the very first time uh, when something happened when I was driving, and normally I would like obviously react to it because like you're driving someone like almost like hit you or whatever, like it's natural to like lay on your horn and just be like yo what the fuck. uh but then I didn't because I was able, like I literally like the first time I was able to just like feel my heartbeat, let it like beat through, and then just keep driving, like never gonna see this dude again anyways, just keep going. I was like holy shit, I can't believe that worked. And it was like through meditation I think early on, that helped me with that. So maybe that's why I don't have as much anxiety or something. I don't know. But when you were talking about the anxiety thing, and I was like, holy shit, I did do that. But it was for anger. And I try to do it when I talk to my mom too. So it's not perfect, but it helps.
Yeah, that's awesome. By the way, and you expanded on, yeah, the mechanisms of meditation, really well with like the interaction of thought, label, and emotions, and it made me think of to uh, the fact that we often misread the physical sensations that arise in us with our label, right? A lot of times people think they're hungry when they're actually just dehydrated. Like they actually just need water, but they're like, oh, I'm hungry, right? Like I know that has been documented. Um, and also, uh, I often tell this to my fighters, right? Like that physically anxiety and excitement are one and the same, but we label them two different things completely, right? Like one's positive and one's negative. Like, but why, right? Like it's the story that we tell about like whether or not it's like we are excited or anxious based on like data that we have in this context. Like, oh, this is a situation where I'm not excited, I'm actually worried, but why, right? Because you've added that label, and that label keeps that emotion stuck there and pulsing instead of going away. Like if you label it, it stays there. Um, and that's why, yeah, those thoughts and labels are so important, and they happen before you even have a chance to. They usually happen before you even have a chance to catch them. Um, yeah, that's a big one for sure.
Yeah, it's actually I'm thinking back to times when I couldn't catch myself.
Hmm.
And those are fun too.
Yeah,
This is a different type of fun, but those are fun too.
yeah, yeah.
I don't have a title yet, but maybe we should wrap soon.
Oh, so I just realized one thing that I think that you I had this big breakthrough. I forgot it. I can't believe I almost didn't say it. One of the I guess one hype working hypothesis I have for why you also don't get anxious is because going back to what I just said, you actually don't get like super excited about like you get excited about the right things, but you're like not like a and we've talked about this before, right? Like, oh my god about everything, like kind of person. Like that, it's a blessing and a curse to be like an excited person, right? Like to be super happy and excited about all these things because you get the inverse of that, converse of that. Um, and so I think there's probably something there. Uh, in addition to that, like I think that because you don't get excited by so much things, it's because you're not so ego attached to so many things, right? Like what gets you the most excited? Right. Generally, what gets people the most excited is things that like are a part of their ego attachment structure. Um, Once it activates, it's like, oh yeah, like, that's so me. That's so like. But I always tend to see you more as like an astronaut in an alien planet, just being, oh look at these aliens. Like,
Yes, it's probably not like that. I just I do think I mean I think you're right. I don't my emotions don't really roller coaster like that. They kind of like, stay within a certain like uh I guess like a certain set level. There's not as much of an amplitude between, happiest and saddest. It's like much smaller than the average person, which is kind of cool. I don't have to deal with as many swings, but at the same time, like maybe I can't feel emotions. So um there's that.
yeah, it's interesting. Keep talking about it. So title. All right, you have a 9 o'clock, right? So we have to be fast.
Yes, sure. We have 9 minutes, man. That's plenty of time.
Like
Plenty of time.
9 minutes, like is like, oh my god, there's so much. What can I do? Oh, so much. 9 minutes. I can do
Yeah,
anything.
dude. I literally go. I probably go take a shower, have a meal, and then get back in 9 minutes.
Okay. All right. What is the title? We can talk. I don't know. I really love talking about meditation, and you talking about the thought feedback, thought emotion loop. Even though it was toward the end, and we didn't like, we kind of like went over it, but
And the title could just be 9 minutes is plenty of time or something like that.
yeah, we could do that too.
It's like the last thing that we said. You have to watch all the way to the end.
Yeah, let's do it because we also
Now,
talked about being late and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah. So.
yeah. So we're late with coming with a title, but if you made it this far,
All
I
right. Season 2, episode 1. 9 minutes is plenty of time.
have 8 minutes left. Let me
Oh, dude, I was watching our first pod, listening to our first pod again. I remember I was telling you that was the one where we still had the 40-minute timer.
oh
And it was
yeah.
so funny because it gave us the warning, like 10 minutes left. But then when it gets to the 1 minute, it just says less than 1 minute remaining. And we both freaked the fuck out. We were like, that's so much worse. Like, give us the second countdown. Don't say less than a minute. Uh,
Yeah, fucking Zoom.
yeah. It's so funny.
Here, let me stop recording real quick.
Okay, all right.
Oh shit, did I not hit the record button? Don't tell me I didn't. Oh wait, no.